The Young and the Restless spoilers Friday's full episodes March 14, 2025. In the midst of Genoa City's ever-deepening web of secrets and schemes, a new plan has emerged. One that promises to turn the tables on the kidnappers who have haunted Sharon and Phyllis for far too long. Despite the relentless despair of captivity, the two women have managed to devise a clever method to catch their tormentor red-handed. They agreed that every time their captor brought food into the holding area, one of them would remain awake while the other slept. With this alternating system ensuring that someone was always alert, they hoped to eventually confront the intruder within a 24-hour period. Their plan was simple in theory. As soon as the kidnapper appeared to deliver the meal, they would ambush and threaten him with the evidence of his crimes. Yet, even the most meticulously laid plans can be fraught with uncertainty. Questions lingered in the air like a heavy fog. What if the kidnapper simply did not show up? Or, perhaps more disturbingly, what if it was not the kidnapper at all but a trusted maid or a coerced accomplice executing the delivery? The possibility meant that gathering indisputable evidence would be an arduous, painstaking process, a race against time and deceit in a situation where every moment mattered. The risk of failure weighed heavily on them, as every shift they kept vigil was both an act of bravery and an exercise in desperation. While Sharon and Phyllis prepared their vigil in their confined space, far from the prying eyes of their captors, a parallel drama was unfolding elsewhere. Nick and Billy, tasked with the equally perilous mission of rescuing the captives, were gripped by an overwhelming sense of dread when they discovered the location where Sharon and Phyllis were being held. Their eyes widened in horror as they realized that the supposed safe house was, in fact, an abandoned hospital. This derelict building, once a place of healing, now stood as a grim monument to tragedy, a place where countless lives had been claimed by a devastating epidemic, leaving behind only sorrow and decay. The very thought of rescuing their loved ones from such a macabre setting was as repulsive as it was dangerous. For Nick and Billy, the abandoned hospital was not just an eerie structure in a forgotten part of town, it was a symbol of the twisted fate that had been imposed on Sharon and Phyllis. The chilling history of death and disease that clung to its walls only deepened their resolve to bring the captives to safety, even as the haunting memories of the past threatened to undermine their courage. Amidst these conflicting narratives of hope and horror, the murky truth surrounding the puppeteers behind the scenes remained elusive. The identities of Alan and Martin, figures who had long been suspected of pulling the strings behind the abductions and other nefarious schemes, were still shrouded in mystery. Rumors swirled that one of them might be none other than Aristotle Dumas, the enigmatic boss of Damien, whose own past was interwoven with shadows and betrayal. Although some whispered that Damien, the troubled enigma caught in the center of these dark machinations, might have been manipulated or groomed by Aristotle Dumas himself, there was still no consensus on whether Damien was truly a villain or simply a pawn in a far larger, more intricate game. This uncertainty gnawed at those who had witnessed his actions. Could he possibly be redeemed, or was his fate sealed by the nefarious ties that bound him to the sinister forces behind the kidnapping? For Jack, who had long harbored a deep-seated dissatisfaction with Alan, the unresolved questions only added fuel to his burning anger. His resentment was not merely directed toward the man who had repeatedly betrayed the trust of those around him, but also toward the broader system of manipulation and deceit that had allowed someone like Alan to flourish. Yet, even as Jack seethed with discontent, it was Tracy who bore the heaviest burden of this legacy. Tracy, caught in the crossfire of shattered loyalties and broken promises, was forced to confront the bitter truth that, despite her hopes and dreams, some consequences were hers to bear alone. The weight of her choices was becoming increasingly unbearable, and as she looked into the mirror of her own disillusionment, she knew that if she continued to place her trust in Alan, she would have to shoulder every heartbreaking consequence alone. In the face of these intertwined tragedies and schemes, Genoa City teetered on the edge of transformation. Sharon and Phyllis, despite the relentless uncertainty of their vigil and the risk of the kidnapper's elusive nature, clung to a fragile hope, a hope that rescue was imminent and that, once free, they could begin to rebuild the lives that had been so cruelly dismantled. Their plan, though risky, symbolized a resistance against the overwhelming oppression that had defined their recent existence. With every careful turn during their watch, they were asserting their will to survive and reclaim a measure of power over their own destiny. Meanwhile, the grim setting of the abandoned hospital loomed as a sinister backdrop to the rescue efforts of Nick and Billy. The horror of its history, its forgotten corridors and echoes of past sorrows, only served to heighten the stakes. Why would their enemies choose such a place, steeped in tragedy, to execute their cruel designs? Perhaps it was a calculated move, a way to haunt every moment with the specter of death, to remind everyone involved that in this city, even salvation could be tainted by the ghosts of the past. For Nick and Billy, every step into that decrepit building was a battle against not only physical danger but also the overwhelming despair of a legacy of loss. In this landscape of fear, hope, and relentless betrayal, each character in Genoa City was forced to confront the stark realities of their lives. Sharon and Phyllis planned their watchful ambush with a cautious optimism that belied the peril of their situation, while Nick and Billy braced themselves against the grim environment of the abandoned hospital. The elusive identities and murky pasts of Alan, Martin, Aristotle Dumas, and even Damien formed a labyrinth of questions that threatened to consume them all. For Jack and Tracy, the internal struggle continued unabated. Jack's simmering disdain for Alan, coupled with the bitter knowledge that Tracy might have to bear the consequences of her misplaced trust, only deepened the fissures within their already fragile alliances. Tracy, in particular, was left to wonder whether the price of loyalty was too steep when it meant sacrificing her own happiness and integrity. The thought that she might eventually have to relinquish the very symbols of her past, perhaps even returning that long-forgotten wedding ring to Alan, served as a stark reminder that in the relentless pursuit of survival and justice, some losses could never be undone. As the hours ticked by, the tension within Genoa City grew ever more palpable. The clever plans set in motion by Sharon and Phyllis represented not only a tactical maneuver against their captor but also a bold declaration of their resilience. Every moment of vigilance was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a defiant act in the face of overwhelming darkness. And while the ultimate fate of their captor remained uncertain, the determination to stand up and reclaim their lives shone through the bleakest of circumstances. In this crucible of despair and hope, the unfolding drama of Genoa City promised to reshape every life it touched. The coming days would reveal whether the meticulous watch would finally yield the evidence needed to expose the kidnappers and dismantle the cruel network behind them, or if the shadows would continue to smother the flickering light of freedom. One thing was clear: every heartbeat, every whispered plan, and every defiant act was a step toward a future where truth might finally pierce the darkness, and where even the most tormented souls could claim their rightful place in the light. In the midst of the chaos and shifting alliances in Genoa City, new tensions began to surface that threatened to tear apart yet another fragile relationship. One crisp evening, as plans to rescue Phyllis were unfolding with all their inherent risks, Sally reached out to Billy. Her voice trembled with a mix of fear and anger as she pleaded for him to call off the dangerous mission. "Billy, please, you have to stop this rescue plan," she insisted over the phone, her words edged with desperation. "If you get hurt, if you ever get into real danger, what am I supposed to do? I can't lose you." But Billy, already hardened by the grim realities of their ongoing struggles, refused to be swayed by what he considered nothing more than empty threats. He had long grown accustomed to Sally's self-serving tendencies and her habit of turning every perilous moment into an opportunity to control his actions. In his mind, a selfish woman like Sally was unlikely to offer him the kind of support or partnership needed for any long-term future. The conversation crackled with tension as Sally's ultimatum, hinting at a breakup if he persisted, fell on deaf ears. Billy, resolute and prepared for the dangerous path he had chosen, silently acknowledged that he was determined to see his mission through, no matter the personal cost. While Billy braced himself for the fallout from his defiant decision, a separate storm was brewing elsewhere in Genoa City, one that involved the tangled webs of romance and betrayal. Kyle found himself seething with anger and confusion after witnessing a secret, unexpected moment between Claire and Holden. The clandestine kiss, which had passed almost unnoticed by most, ignited a fire within Kyle. For him, the scene was far more than just a fleeting display of affection. How could they do this, he fumed, struggling to comprehend the motivations behind what he saw. When confronted, Claire dismissed the incident as nothing more than a brief peck, a simple, inconsequential kiss that meant nothing. It was just a peck, Kyle, she argued, trying to downplay the significance. Holden and I were not involved in anything more than that. But Kyle was not one to be easily placated. His intuition told him that there was more lurking beneath the surface. He was well aware of the intricacies of trust and deceit that had become all too common in their lives, and he wasn't about to let such a betrayal slide without consequence. For Kyle, the secretive kiss symbolized an opportunity, a turning point in the tangled web of relationships that constantly shifted in Genoa City. His heart pounded not just with anger but also with a sense of readiness for change. Amid the rising tensions, Summer quietly began to emerge as a beacon of comfort and support for him. Sensing his inner turmoil, she stepped in to console Kyle, offering him the solace that he desperately needed. With her gentle reassurances and genuine concern, Summer slowly began to bridge the gap that had formed between him and the rest of the fractured circle. In her eyes, Kyle saw not only compassion but also the promise of a new beginning, one that might help him reclaim his dignity and set him free from the betrayals that had repeatedly scarred his past. As the drama unfolded on multiple fronts, Billy's dangerous rescue mission defying Sally's suffocating demands, and Kyle's wounded heart finding a potential salve in Summer's warmth, Genoa City was once again caught in the throes of unpredictable fate. The conflicting desires for safety, loyalty, and redemption clashed like titanic forces, leaving everyone involved teetering on the edge of irreversible change. For Billy, the road ahead was paved with peril, but his resolve remained unbroken. Every step he took was a silent testament to his commitment to rescue Phyllis, regardless of the personal cost or the nagging warnings from those who cared for him in ways that sometimes felt more possessive than protective. Meanwhile, the fallout from the secretive kiss continued to reverberate through Kyle's life. The moment had shattered the fragile veneer of trust that he had built around his relationships, leaving him with a bitter taste of betrayal. Yet, in that bitter taste lay the seeds of transformation. With Summer's unexpected support and the promise of a fresh start on the horizon, Kyle began to envision a future where he was no longer defined by the missteps and betrayals of the past. Instead, he saw a chance to rebuild his world with new foundations, ones grounded in honesty, respect, and genuine connection. In a city where every alliance could crumble at the slightest provocation and every secret had the power to ignite fresh conflicts, the intertwined destinies of Billy, Sally, Kyle, Claire, Holden, and Summer served as a stark reminder that nothing was ever truly certain. As Sally's threats clashed with Billy's determination and Kyle's simmering outrage found a glimmer of hope in Summer, Genoa City continued its relentless march toward an unknown future. Each character was caught in a maelstrom of their own making, a web of love, betrayal, and defiance that promised to reshape their lives in ways they could scarcely imagine. The struggles of the present moment, as turbulent as they were, held the potential to forge new paths. For Billy, it was a path that demanded courage in the face of danger. For Kyle, it was an opportunity to rise above deception and embrace a chance at true affection. And for Sally, the consequences of her controlling nature would soon force her to confront the reality that sometimes, the ones we try to hold on to the tightest are the very ones who will slip away when destiny calls. In the end, the true test lay in whether each person could rise above the destructive patterns of the past and create a future defined not by the shadows of betrayal, but by the radiant light of honest, hard-won love. In the labyrinthine corridors of Genoa City's tumultuous heart, complicated emotions and shifting alliances continue to twist the lives of its inhabitants. Among these tangled relationships, a new triangle has emerged, one that embodies both desire and discontent in equal measure. Summer and Chance, whose budding closeness has ignited whispers throughout the city, now find themselves at the center of an emotional storm. Their growing intimacy, marked by shared secrets and stolen moments of laughter, is a beacon of brightness amid the ever-present gloom of betrayal and mistrust. Yet, for Kyle, this evolving bond is far from a source of joy. In his eyes, the situation represents the ultimate betrayal of what he considers sacred, a loyalty that should be reserved exclusively for him. Kyle, ever the steadfast traditionalist in matters of love, clings to the belief that a woman's devotion should be unwavering, her heart a fortress reserved solely for him. His expectations, rigid and uncompromising, have grown into a suffocating creed. To Kyle, the idea of sharing Summer's affections with anyone else is not only intolerable, it's an affront to his very identity. His discontent simmers beneath a veneer of calm, each glance in the direction of Summer and Chance's closeness fanning the flames of his jealousy. In his mind, his own contributions to the relationship are sufficient, and the notion that Summer might find solace and affection in another man is a betrayal of the deepest order. Summer, on the other hand, finds herself caught in a tumultuous tug-of-war between her heart and the expectations imposed upon her by those around her. Though she harbors deep feelings for Kyle, a love that is tender, genuine, and laced with quiet passion, the reciprocity she so desperately seeks remains elusive. Her heart aches as she watches Kyle's rigid adherence to his beliefs, his inability to see beyond his own ego and accept the warmth that another soul might offer her. In Summer's eyes, Kyle's stubborn insistence on exclusivity and his narrow view of love have become shackles, constraining her from experiencing the fullness of life's emotional spectrum. It is not that she has no affection for him, rather, she yearns for a love that is not possessive or self-centered, but expansive and understanding, a love that can flourish even in the midst of change and growth. Meanwhile, Chance, whose presence has slowly woven its way into the fabric of Summer's life, stands as a contrasting figure to Kyle's rigid ideals. With a gentle demeanor and an open heart, Chance exudes a quiet confidence that is both alluring and comforting. His willingness to embrace the complexity of modern relationships, where loyalty need not be a prison but rather a shared journey, is a stark counterpoint to Kyle's outdated expectations. To Chance, love is not measured by exclusivity alone, but by the mutual respect and freedom to explore one's identity. His attentiveness to Summer's hopes and dreams, his readiness to offer support without conditions, creates an unspoken promise of a future where emotional fulfillment is a collaborative endeavor rather than a solitary battle for possession. Caught between these two very different visions of love and commitment, Summer finds herself at the center of a tangled triangle, a situation that seems as inevitable as it is heartbreaking. Every stolen smile and gentle touch shared with Chance is a quiet defiance of Kyle's unyielding demands. Yet, each of these moments is bittersweet, as Summer cannot help but feel the heavy burden of loyalty and expectation pressing upon her. The tension within this trio is palpable, a microcosm of the larger conflicts that have long defined life in Genoa City. While Kyle's jealousy and possessiveness threaten to suffocate any spark of genuine connection, Summer's internal struggle represents the yearning for a love that is as liberating as it is intimate, a love that does not demand total surrender but celebrates the individuality of both partners. The situation, as it stands, is as complex as it is painful. Kyle's inability to share, rooted in his own selfishness, casts a long shadow over what could be a promising future with Summer. His expectation that women should remain exclusively loyal to him is a relic of a bygone era, one that clashes violently with the evolving dynamics of modern relationships. Yet, it is precisely this rigid mindset that fuels the conflict, creating a rift that grows ever wider with each passing day. Summer's love for Kyle is sincere, but it is marred by the realization that his selfish demands leave little room for her own emotional needs and desires. As the days unfold, the strain of this imbalance threatens to fracture the very foundation of their relationship. For Chance, the allure lies not in an all-consuming possession but in the gentle reciprocity of mutual care. A way of loving that acknowledges the importance of personal freedom and shared growth. He is acutely aware that in the tangled web of relationships, sometimes the heart must wander before it can truly settle. His quiet understanding of the complexities of love and his willingness to step into the breach where Kyle's self-interest falters have not gone unnoticed by Summer. In him, she sees the possibility of a future where love is not a battlefield of demands and resentment, but a safe haven where both partners can thrive as individuals and as a couple. As this love triangle unfolds, the stakes extend far beyond the personal realm. The discord among Summer, Kyle, and Chance mirrors the broader conflicts rippling through Genoa City, a city where loyalty is tested at every turn, and where the struggle for power and influence often leads to unexpected fractures in even the most intimate relationships. The tension between tradition and modernity, between possess